The rain fell in sheets across the cracked asphalt, turning potholes into miniature lakes that reflected the amber glow of streetlights. My windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour as I squinted through the glass, my knuckles white against the steering wheel of my ancient Honda. The heater had given up halfway through winter, and my breath fogged in the cold air as I drove home from my second shift at Mercy Hospital. Just 3 more blocks, I whispered to myself, a ritual that had become as familiar as the ache in my feet after 12 hours of running between patients. My scrub still smelled of antiseptic and coffee, and beneath my thin jacket I shivered. 26 years old, and all I had to show for it was an apartment I could barely afford and student loan payments that ate most of my paycheck. The intersection ahead glowed red, and I eased onto the brake, feeling the familiar shudder as my car protested. That's when I heard it. The squeal of tires against wet pavement, followed by the sickening crunch of metal. My head snapped toward the sound just in time to see a black SUV swerve violently before slamming into a concrete barrier. I didn't think. Training kicked in, and I pulled over, grabbing my phone and the small emergency kit I kept in my glove compartment. The rain soaked through my clothes in seconds as I ran toward the wreckage, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Hello? Can you hear me?" I called out, approaching the driver's side. The window was spiderwebbed with cracks, and through it I could make out a silhouette. No movement. No response. My hands trembled as I tried the door. Locked. I moved to the passenger side, relief washing over me when the handle gave way. The interior light flickered on, revealing the driver slumped against the wheel. Male, maybe mid-30s, wearing what appeared to be an expensive suit, now stained with blood from a gash on his forehead. "Sir? I'm a nurse. I'm going to help you, okay?" I reached across to check his pulse, strong and steady. Thank God. Up close, I noticed details my first glance had missed. His watch probably cost more than my yearly rent. A gold signet ring adorned one hand. His cologne, despite the metallic scent of blood, smelled of cedar and something exclusive. As I worked to assess his injuries, his eyelids fluttered. For a moment, just a heartbeat, I found myself staring into eyes so dark they seemed to swallow the light. Then, with a groan, he slipped back into unconsciousness. I needed to get him out. Smoke curled from beneath the crumpled hood, and though the rain might keep a fire at bay, I wasn't willing to bet this stranger's life on it. Ignoring the voice in my head that recited all the reasons not to move an accident victim, I unfastened his seatbelt and hooked my arms beneath his shoulders. He was heavier than he looked. My muscles screamed as I dragged him from the passenger side, nearly collapsing under his weight as we fell together onto the wet asphalt. For a moment we lay there, me, gasping for breath, and him, unconscious but alive, his head resting against my shoulder. That's when I heard the second car. Headlights cut through the rain as a vehicle identical to the wrecked SUV pulled up. 3 men emerged, all wearing suits despite the hour, all moving with a predatory grace that sent a chill down my spine. The tallest one barked something in what sounded like Italian before his eyes found me, cradling the injured man's head. "Miss, step away from him," the tall one said, his accent thick but his tone leaving no room for argument. I didn't move. "He needs a hospital. I've called an ambulance." "No ambulance." He approached, and I noticed a bulge beneath his jacket that looked suspiciously like a gun. "We take him. You never saw this, understand?" Fear crystallized in my stomach. "He has a head injury, possibly internal bleeding. He needs proper medical care, not—" I said, "We take him." The man crouched beside us, and I caught a glimpse of a tattoo peeking from his collar. Some kind of bird. His eyes softened almost imperceptibly as he looked at the unconscious man. "He will have the best care, I promise you." Before I could protest further, the injured man's eyes opened again. This time, they remained open, focusing first on me, then on his companion. He muttered something in Italian. "She pulled you from the car, boss," the tall man replied in English, his tone respectful but tense. "Boss." The word hung in the air between us as the injured man's gaze returned to me. Despite his condition, something shifted in his expression. A calculation. An interest that made my skin prickle. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice rough but carrying the same melodic accent as his companion. I hesitated. Elena Russo. A smile touched his lips, transforming his face from merely handsome to something that made my heart stutter. Italian? My grandfather was from Sicily. Ah. That single sound carried a weight I didn't understand. Fate has a sense of humor, it seems. Before I could ask what he meant, he winced, a flash of pain crossing his features. I immediately pressed my fingers against his wrist, checking his pulse again. Please, let me call an ambulance, or at least let me take you to Mercy. I work there. I can... No hospitals. He struggled to sit up, and to my surprise, I found myself helping him. My men will take care of me. You could have a concussion, internal injuries. You need... What I need, he interrupted, his hand suddenly covering mine, is discretion. Can you provide that, Elena Russo? The way he said my name, like he was tasting it, sent an involuntary shiver through me that had nothing to do with the rain or fear. His hand was warm despite everything, his grip firm. I'm a nurse. Patient confidentiality is part of my job, I said, trying to sound professional despite our bizarre circumstances. He studied me for a long moment, raindrops clinging to his dark eyelashes. Then he nodded once, as though coming to a decision. Help me up. Against my better judgment, I did. His companions moved forward, taking his weight from me as he stood. He swayed slightly but waved off their concern. Instead, he reached into his ruined jacket and pulled out a card. Simple white with nothing but a phone number embossed in black. If you ever need anything, he said, pressing it into my palm and closing my fingers around it. Call this number. Ask for Dante. Dante. The name echoed in my mind as they helped him into the waiting SUV. No last name. Just Dante, like the poet who wrote about the 9 circles of hell. Wait, I called out as they prepared to leave. What about your car? The police will come. They'll run the plates. There will be no car when the police arrive, the tall man said, and something in his tone told me not to ask how that was possible. Dante leaned out from the back seat, his eyes finding mine one last time. Thank you for your help, Elena. Our paths will cross again. It wasn't a question or even a hope. It was a statement of fact, a promise that sent equal parts fear and anticipation coursing through me. I stood there, soaked to the skin, watching as the SUV disappeared into the rain. Only then did I realize I was still clutching the card, the edges digging into my palm. Only then did I notice a black sedan parked across the street, its occupants watching me. Only then did I understand that whatever I'd stumbled into tonight, it wasn't over. The next morning arrived with suspicious normalcy. My alarm blared at its usual time. I stumbled to my tiny kitchen to make coffee, and the news reported nothing about a car accident on my route home. I might have convinced myself I'd dreamed the whole encounter, if not for the simple white card sitting on my nightstand and the lingering scent of expensive cologne on my rain-soaked jacket. I had the day off, a rare luxury, and I spent it cleaning my apartment with nervous energy, jumping every time my phone rang. Each time it was mundane, my mother checking in, a coworker asking to switch shifts, a telemarketer trying to sell me insurance I couldn't afford. By evening, I'd almost managed to push thoughts of dark eyes and cryptic promises from my mind. Almost. Until someone knocked on my door. I lived in a building with security that rarely worked, and neighbors who minded their own business out of necessity rather than courtesy. Visitors were announced via an intercom that had been broken since before I moved in. Who is it? I called, pressing my eye against the peephole. A man in a suit stood outside, not the tall one from last night, but cut from the same cloth. Beside him, a woman held a garment bag. Miss Russo? I have a delivery from Mr. Ricci. The last name to go with Dante. It meant nothing to me, but the fact that he'd found my apartment less than 24 hours after our encounter sent a chill through me. Against my better judgment, I opened the door, keeping the chain latched. I didn't tell anyone my address. The man smiled thinly. Mr. Ricci has resources. He gestured to the woman, who held up the garment bag. He would like to invite you to dinner tomorrow evening, to thank you properly for your assistance last night. I don't need thanks. I did what anyone would do. We both know that isn't true, Miss Russo. He nodded toward the bag. The dress is a gift. The car will collect you at 7. Before I could refuse, the woman slipped a cream-colored envelope through the gap in the door. Mr. Ricci is not accustomed to being declined, she said, her voice gentler than her companion's. But he asked me to tell you this is an invitation, not a command. Something in the way she emphasized the distinction made me wonder how rare such a clarification might be. And if I say no, then we leave, and you never hear from Mr. Ricci again. The man's expression suggested he already knew my answer, and it wasn't no. I took the envelope, my curiosity overriding my caution. How is he? His injuries? Mr. Ricci is recovering well, thanks to your quick action. I nodded. Then, in a moment of either courage or foolishness, unlatched the chain. You can leave the dress, but tell Mr. Ricci I'll need more information before I agree to dinner with a stranger. The man's eyebrows lifted slightly, surprised perhaps by my boldness. The woman hung the garment bag on my coat hook and stepped back. Of course. His number is in the envelope. Feel free to call with any questions. He handed me a small box I hadn't noticed before. These are also for you. Inside, nestled against black velvet, lay a pair of earrings that caught the light from my hallway. Simple but elegant, and undoubtedly real diamonds. I can't accept these, I said, trying to return the box. Mr. Ricci insists, a token of gratitude only. The man stepped back. 7 tomorrow, Miss Russo. We look forward to your decision. With that, they left, their footsteps echoing down the hallway as I stood frozen in my doorway, holding diamonds I couldn't possibly keep and staring at a dress I shouldn't wear. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. Elena, some debts can never be fully repaid, but I would be honored if you would allow me to begin with dinner. Your courage last night was remarkable. I find myself wanting to know the woman behind such bravery. Call me with any concerns. I promise you have nothing to fear from me. Dante. Beneath his signature was a phone number, different from the one on the white card. I sank onto my sofa, the note trembling in my hands as I weighed my options. The sensible choice was clear: return the gifts, decline the invitation, and forget I ever met a man named Dante Ricci. Instead, I found myself unzipping the garment bag. The dress inside was midnight blue. Simple but clearly expensive. I held it against myself, looking in the mirror, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. This woman who was considering having dinner with a stranger who sent men in suits to her apartment and knew her address without being told. A stranger who might be dangerous. A stranger whose eyes I couldn't forget. I reached for my phone. The number rang 3 times before he answered. Elena? Not a question, as though he'd been expecting my call, my name already familiar on his tongue. How did you find my address? I asked, skipping pleasantries. A pause, then a low chuckle. Direct, I appreciate that. Another pause. I have connections at the hospital. It wasn't difficult. The casual admission that he could access employee records sent a warning flare through my mind. That's invasive. It's efficient, he countered. If it makes you feel better, I only sought your information to thank you properly. Nothing more. The earrings are too much. They're nothing. The dismissive way he said it, like diamond earrings were as insignificant as a greeting card, told me more about Dante Ricci than perhaps he intended. Who are you? I asked. The question that had been burning in my mind since I'd watched his men whisk him away from the accident scene. Someone who owes you a debt. His voice softened. Have dinner with me tomorrow, Elena. I promise you'll be safe. You can ask me anything then. I should have said no. Every instinct honed from years of struggling alone in the city screamed at me to decline. Instead, I heard myself say, I finish my shift at 6. I'll need time to change. The car will wait. The satisfaction in his voice was unmistakable. Until tomorrow, then. He hung up before I could change my mind. The next day crawled by in a haze of anticipation and doubt. I moved between patients on autopilot, checking IVs and dispensing medications while my thoughts circled endlessly around the evening ahead. Earth to Elena, Mia, another nurse on my floor, waved her hand in front of my face. That's the 2nd time you've checked Mrs. Peterson's chart in 5 minutes. What's going on with you today? I forced a smile. Just tired. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. It wouldn't have anything to do with the guy who called the nurse's station asking for you earlier, would it? The one with the sexy accent? My heart stuttered. Someone called for me? Yeah, around noon. Wouldn't leave a message, just said he'd speak to you later. She studied my face. You're blushing. Who is he? Nobody, I lied. Probably a wrong number. Mia clearly didn't believe me, but before she could press further, my pager beeped. A patient needed assistance. I hurried away, grateful for the interruption. By the time my shift ended, my nerves were frayed. I changed in the hospital locker room, slipping into the blue dress that fit as though it had been made for me. The diamond earrings caught the fluorescent light as I fastened them, and for a moment, I didn't recognize my reflection in the small mirror. This woman in expensive clothes, preparing to have dinner with a stranger who sent cars for her. Outside the hospital, a black SUV idled by the curb, identical to the one from the accident, except for the absence of damage. The driver stepped out when he saw me, another suit-clad man with watchful eyes who opened the rear door without speaking. The interior was luxurious. Soft leather seats and privacy glass separating me from the driver. A small vase held a single red rose. Beside it sat a note card with my name written in elegant script. For your courage. For your kindness. For tonight. The car moved smoothly through evening traffic, taking me deeper into the city's affluent district. We eventually pulled up to a building I recognized as one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, the kind of place where reservations were made months in advance, and the menu didn't list prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The driver opened my door and offered his hand. Mr. Ricci is waiting inside. Enjoy your evening, Miss Russo. The maitre d' greeted me by name the moment I stepped inside, as though I were expected. Miss Russo, welcome. Mr. Ricci is eager to see you. Please follow me. We bypassed the main dining room entirely, moving through a discreet door and up a private staircase. At the top, the maitre d' gestured to a single door. Your evening awaits. My hand trembled slightly as I turned the handle. The room beyond was intimate, a private dining space with windows overlooking the city lights. A table set for two stood in the center, candlelight dancing across fine china and crystal. And there, standing by the window, was Dante. He turned when I entered, and the sight of him stole my breath. In the harsh rain and chaos of the accident, I hadn't fully registered his appearance. Now, I saw him clearly, tall and broad-shouldered in a perfectly tailored suit, olive skin contrasting with eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A small bandage at his temple was the only evidence of the previous night's events. Elena, he said, crossing the room to take my hand. His fingers were warm as they closed around mine, and he lifted my knuckles to his lips in an old-world gesture that should have seemed affected, but somehow wasn't. You look beautiful. Thank you for the dress, I replied, struggling to maintain my composure. And the earrings, though they're far too much. His eyes, those impossibly dark eyes, traced my face, lingering on the diamonds at my ears. They suit you. Simple, elegant, with an inner fire. A smile tugged at his mouth, much like the woman wearing them. He led me to the table, pulling out my chair with practiced ease. A waiter appeared from nowhere, pouring wine into glasses that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I took the liberty of arranging the menu, Dante said, settling across from me. But if there's anything you don't care for, I'm sure it will be fine, I replied, taking a sip of wine to steady my nerves. It was exquisite, of course. You have questions. It wasn't a query, but a statement of fact. Ask them. Tonight, I am an open book. I set down my glass. Who are you, Dante Ricci? His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps. A businessman with varied interests. What kind of businessman needs armed guards and refuses hospitals after an accident? A smile curved his lips, a cautious one. He leaned forward slightly. My family has investments in real estate, shipping, private security, and several other industries. We've been successful. Successful enough to make you a target? He inclined his head. Perceptive. Yes, wealth creates enemies, hence the security. And the accident? Was that random? Or was someone targeting you? Something hardened in his expression. Random, as far as we can determine. The road was wet, visibility poor. But we're still investigating. The first course arrived, delicate scallops arranged like artwork on the plate. I waited until the server departed before continuing. Why me? Why all this? I gestured to the private room, the elegant meal. A thank you note would have sufficed. Dante studied me, taking his time before answering. In my world, Elena, debts are paid in full. You saved my life at risk to your own. Such an act deserves recognition. He paused. And perhaps I was curious about the woman who would drag a stranger from a burning car without thought for her own safety. I'm a nurse. It's what we do. No. His response was immediate, almost sharp. It's what you do. I've known doctors and nurses who would have called for help and kept their distance. You didn't hesitate. I looked away, uncomfortable with his intensity. You make it sound more heroic than it was. And you diminish your own courage. He raised his glass in a toast to the unexpected angels we meet in the rain. The rest of the meal passed in a strange dance of questions and half-answers. Dante revealed little concrete information about himself, while somehow making me feel like I was the focus of his undivided attention. He asked about my work, my family, my dreams, listening with genuine interest to stories about night shifts and difficult patients. By dessert, I'd learned that he'd been born in Sicily, but raised in America, that he had a younger sister he adored, and that despite his obvious wealth, he preferred simple pleasures, good wine, classical music, and books read by firelight. What I hadn't learned was anything about how he'd acquired his fortune, or what exactly his family business entailed. As we lingered over espresso, he fixed those dark eyes on me again. I have a proposition for you, Elena. My guard, lowered by wine and conversation, instantly rose again. What kind of proposition? He smiled. Nothing improper. I'm hosting a charity gala this weekend, benefiting children's hospitals, including Mercy. I'd like you to attend as my guest. I don't belong in that world, I said automatically. Yet here you are, and you've navigated it beautifully. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Say yes. The touch sent electricity up my arm. I work Saturday night. I'll speak with your supervisor. A donation to the pediatric wing could surely warrant one night off for an exemplary nurse. I pulled my hand back. I don't want special treatment. It's not special treatment to recognize excellence. His tone was reasonable, persuasive. The hospital benefits. You get a night off. I get the company of a beautiful, intelligent woman who won't bore me with talk of yacht prices and summer homes. Put like that, it was hard to refuse. Still, I hesitated. Why me, really? You must know dozens of women who would jump at the invitation. Dozens. He agreed easily. All of them wanting something from me. Money, connections, status. His expression softened. You're the first woman in years who's looked at me and seen just a man, not a wallet or a name. That's because I didn't know your name or see your wallet until after I'd already dragged you through the rain. He laughed then, a rich sound that transformed his face. Exactly. And now that you do know, you're more wary, not less. Do you know how refreshing that is? I couldn't help smiling in response. So I'm a novelty. You're a revelation. The intensity returned to his gaze. Say yes, Elena. I should have said no. Every logical part of my brain screamed that getting further entangled with this mysterious man was dangerous. Instead, I heard myself say, yes. The satisfaction that spread across his features was almost predatory. After dinner, he insisted on driving me home himself, dismissing his waiting driver with a few words in Italian. His car, a sleek, obscenely expensive sports car, purred through the city streets as we rode in comfortable silence. When we reached my apartment building, he didn't just drop me off but parked and came around to open my door. I'll walk you up. That's not necessary. Indulge me. He offered his arm. I'm old-fashioned about some things. The gesture was charming enough that I relented, placing my hand in the crook of his arm. We'd barely reached the building entrance when a group of young men loitering nearby took notice of us. Or more specifically, of Dante's car. Nice ride, man, one of them called out, moving closer. Something in his posture set off warning bells in my mind. Dante's demeanor changed instantly. The charming dinner companion disappeared, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. Without looking back, he pressed a small button on his key fob. The car's alarm gave a single chirp, and I noticed the lights flash in a pattern that seemed unusual for a standard security system. "Good evening, gentlemen," Dante said, his voice pleasant but carrying an undercurrent of steel. "I suggest you continue with your evening elsewhere." The leader of the group hesitated, clearly reassessing the situation. His eyes flickered from Dante's calm expression to something behind us. I glanced back to see a black sedan had pulled up silently, its windows tinted, engine still running. "Whatever, man," the would-be troublemaker muttered, backing away. His friends followed, disappearing around the corner. "You have people following us?" I asked, suddenly uneasy again. "I have security," Dante corrected smoothly, guiding me inside as though nothing had happened. A necessary precaution. In the elevator, I studied him. The hardness I'd glimpsed outside lingered around his eyes. Those boys weren't random, were they? "The car summoned your security team." A smile touched his lips, perceptive again. "Yes. My head of security insists on certain protocols. Because you're just a businessman?" The elevator doors opened on my floor, saving him from answering. He walked me to my apartment door, maintaining a respectable distance now. "Thank you for dinner," I said, searching for my keys. "Thank you for saying yes, twice." He reached into his jacket and produced a small envelope. "Details for Saturday. The car will collect you at 7. Our fingers brushed as I took it, and he caught my hand, turning it over to press a kiss against my palm, a gesture so unexpectedly intimate that I gasped. "Until Saturday, Elena Russo." His eyes held mine, dark and full of promise. Then he stepped back, waiting as I unlocked my door. I paused in the threshold, curiosity overriding caution one final time. Those men outside, if they hadn't backed down, what would have happened? Dante's expression didn't change, but something cold and ancient swept across his features. "Nothing good." He nodded once. "Good night, Elena. Sweet dreams." As I closed the door between us, I knew with absolute certainty that for the men who had approached us, the outcome would have been anything but nothing good. And despite everything rational within me, that knowledge didn't frighten me nearly as much as it should have. I leaned against the closed door, heart racing, wondering what exactly I'd just agreed to, and why, despite all the warning signs. I was already looking forward to seeing Dante Ricci again. The days before Saturday passed in a strange limbo of anticipation and doubt. I worked my shifts, changed IV bags, dispensed medications, all while my thoughts continually drifted to dark eyes and the ghost of lips against my palm. Twice, I nearly called the number in the envelope to cancel. Twice, I found myself unable to dial, the memory of Dante's voice, "You're a revelation," stopping my fingers on the keypad. On Friday, my supervisor called me into her office. Margaret Chen had been running the medical surgical floor with military precision for 15 years. Nothing escaped her notice, which was why my stomach dropped when she fixed me with her penetrating stare. "Elena, sit down." I perched on the edge of the chair across from her desk, mentally reviewing my recent shifts for any mistakes. "I received a call yesterday," she began, folding her hands on her desk. "From the Ricci Foundation." My breath caught. Dante had mentioned speaking to my supervisor, but I hadn't expected him to follow through so quickly. "They're making a substantial donation to our pediatric wing," Margaret continued, watching me carefully. "Apparently their founder was particularly impressed with one of our nurses during a recent encounter." I swallowed hard. "Ms. Chen, I can explain." She held up a hand. "No need. Mr. Ricci was quite clear about how you assisted him after a car accident." Her expression softened slightly. "What he didn't explain is why one of my best nurses is suddenly attending charity galas with one of the city's most prominent and private businessmen." The way she emphasized businessmen made me wonder exactly how much she knew about Dante. "It's just a thank you," I said, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. Margaret's eyebrow arched. "$1 million donation to pediatrics is quite a thank you." "$1 million?" I couldn't finish the sentence, shock stealing my voice. "Yes." She leaned forward. "Elena, I've worked in this city for a long time. I know the Ricci name. I know what it represents." Ice formed in my stomach. "What do you mean?" She sighed. "Just be careful. Men like that live in a different world with different rules. She straightened a stack of papers on her desk. That said, I'm approving your schedule change for tomorrow. The donation comes with a stipulation that you be given time to attend the gala. I didn't ask for that, I said quickly. I can work my regular shift. The board has already approved it. Her tone made it clear the decision was final. Enjoy your evening, Elena, and remember what I said. Be careful. I left her office with her warning echoing in my mind. Men like that. Different rules. What exactly did Margaret know about Dante Ricci that I didn't? Saturday arrived with a package delivered to my door. Another garment bag, this one accompanied by a large white box tied with silver ribbon. Inside the box lay a gown that took my breath away. Deep crimson silk that flowed like liquid fire, with a modest neckline but a daring back that would leave most of my spine exposed. The white box contained shoes, a clutch, and a velvet jewelry case holding a diamond pendant on a delicate platinum chain. A note card read simply, "To match your earrings. The car will arrive at 7. D. I ran my fingers over the gown, wondering how he'd guessed my size so precisely. The thought that he might have had me measured somehow during my sleep sent a shiver down my spine, half fear, half something else I didn't want to examine too closely. At exactly 7, my intercom buzzed. The sleek black car waited outside. But this time, when the driver opened the rear door, Dante himself sat inside. He wore a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped from the pages of a magazine, perfectly fitted to his broad shoulders and narrow waist, highlighting the athletic build that his business suits merely suggested. The small bandage at his temple was gone, replaced by a nearly invisible line that would likely fade entirely with time. Elena. He said my name like a prayer as I slid into the seat beside him. You are breathtaking. I smoothed the silk over my knees, suddenly self-conscious. The dress is beautiful, thank you. But the necklace is a token only. He reached out, his fingers brushing my collarbone where the diamond rested. Though I must say it looks even better on you than I imagined. The casual touch sent warmth spiraling through me. I cleared my throat. $1 million is more than a token. His expression didn't change, though something flashed in his eyes, surprise perhaps that I knew about the donation. The children's wing at Mercy does excellent work. They deserve support. Is that the only reason? A small smile touched his lips. No, but it is a good one. He settled back in his seat as the car pulled away from my apartment. Tonight, I ask only that you enjoy yourself. Tomorrow, if you still have questions about my generosity, I will answer them. The promise of answers tomorrow implied a certainty that we would see each other again after tonight. The assumption should have irritated me. Instead, I felt a flutter of anticipation. The gala was held at the Art Museum, its marble steps lined with red carpet and photographers capturing the arrival of the city's elite. When our car pulled up, I felt a surge of panic. I can't walk past all those cameras, I whispered. Dante's hand closed over mine. They're not for you. They're for the donors. Just keep your eyes on me. He squeezed my fingers gently. Trust me, Elena. I won't let go. True to his word, his hand remained at the small of my back as we ascended the steps, his body partially shielding me from the flashes. I caught the curious glances, heard the whispered questions about who I was, but Dante moved us through the crowd with practiced ease, acknowledging greetings with nods, but never stopping long enough for introductions. Inside, the museum's grand hall had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over tables draped in white linen. An orchestra played softly from a corner. Servers circulated with champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres. Dante guided me through the room, his hand a constant presence against my back, warm through the thin silk. Occasionally he would stop to speak briefly with someone, politicians, I guessed from their practiced smiles, or business associates who regarded me with barely concealed curiosity. He introduced me simply as Elena, my guest, offering no explanation for my presence at his side. We had just accepted champagne from a passing server when a woman approached, tall and striking in a black gown that highlighted her olive skin and dark hair. Her resemblance to Dante was unmistakable. "Brother dear," she said, ere kissing his cheek, before turning appraising eyes on me. "Aren't you going to introduce us? Sophia." His voice carried a warning note. "This is Elena Russo. Elena, my sister, Sofia Ricci." She extended a manicured hand. "So you're the nurse who saved my brother's reckless hide." Her smile was genuine, if sharp-edged. "I've been dying to meet you." "It's nice to meet you too," I replied, instantly wary of the calculation in her eyes. "Elena works at Mercy Hospital," Dante said, his tone casual, but his eyes fixed on his sister with an intensity that seemed to communicate something beyond his words. "How convenient," Sophia murmured, her gaze flicking between us. "Well, I won't monopolize you. Father is looking for you, Dante. Something about the governor's request." She squeezed my arm lightly. "Don't let my brother intimidate you, Elena. His bark is much worse than his bite, usually." With that cryptic comment, she glided away, leaving me staring after her. "Your sister is interesting," I said carefully. Dante's mouth quirked. Sophia has never mastered subtlety. He glanced across the room. "I should speak with my father. Would you like to come with me, or would you prefer to explore? The exhibition in the East Wing is exceptional." The thought of meeting more of Dante's family, particularly a father who apparently had business with the governor, sent a wave of anxiety through me. "I think I'll look at the art." He nodded, seeming unsurprised. "I won't be long." He gestured to a man standing discreetly near a column, one of the suits I recognized from the night of the accident. "Marco will accompany you. I don't need a bodyguard to look at paintings." Something hardened in Dante's expression. "Indulge me." He lifted my hand to his lips. 30 minutes, at most. Before I could protest further, he was gone, moving through the crowd with the confidence of someone who owned the space. Marco detached himself from the column and approached, maintaining a respectful distance. "Miss Russo, Mr. Ricci asked me to ensure your comfort. Please, enjoy the exhibition. I'll remain nearby." His tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. I nodded and made my way toward the East Wing, acutely aware of his presence several paces behind me. The exhibition was a collection of Renaissance art, the walls lined with paintings depicting classical myths and religious scenes. I wandered among them, trying to lose myself in their beauty while ignoring the whispers that followed me. The mysterious woman in red who had arrived with Dante Ricci. I was studying a particularly vivid depiction of Persephone's abduction when a voice spoke close to my ear. "Beautiful and tragic, isn't it? The moment that divides her life into before and after." I turned to find a man standing beside me, older, distinguished, with silver at his temples and eyes the color of flint. Unlike the other guests in their formal attire, he wore a dark suit with a clerical collar. "I'm sorry, Father. I didn't see you there," I said, recognizing the Catholic priest's garb. He smiled. "No apology needed, my child. I'm Father Thomas." He nodded toward the painting. "You seem moved by this piece." "It's the expression on her face," I admitted. "Not just fear, but a strange fascination, too. As though part of her is drawn to the darkness, even as she resists it. Perceptive." He studied me with interest. "You came with Dante Ricci, yes?" I tensed slightly. "Yes." "Do you know him?" "I've known the Ricci family for many years." His expression revealed nothing. "I serve as their family chaplain, among other roles. A Catholic family with their own priest." The detail added another layer to the enigma of Dante Ricci. "You seem troubled," Father Thomas continued, "perhaps by the company you keep tonight." Before I could respond, I felt a presence at my back. Not Dante, but Marco. Suddenly much closer than before. "Father Thomas," he said, his tone respectful but firm. "Mr. Ricci is looking for Miss Russo." The priest nodded, unperturbed by the interruption. "Of course." He turned back to me. "Remember, my child, Persephone became a queen in her own right, neither wholly consumed by darkness nor untouched by it. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in walking between two worlds." He pressed a card into my hand. "If you ever need guidance." Marco led me away, his expression impassive but his body language tense. "Mr. Ricci is by the south fountain." I followed him through the gallery, the priest's card burning in my palm. Outside in the sculpture garden, Dante stood alone by an illuminated fountain, his profile sharp against the night sky. He turned as I approached, and the intensity in his gaze made my heart stutter. I met your family's priest, I said without preamble. Something flickered across his features. Annoyance, perhaps. Father Thomas has been with our family for many years. He seemed concerned about me. Dante's jaw tightened. He oversteps. He offered me his arm. Come. Dinner is about to be served. I hesitated. Dante, what am I doing here? Really? He studied me for a long moment, the fountain's light casting shadows across his face. You're here because I want you to be, because when I'm with you, I feel different. He stepped closer. Does that frighten you? Should it? A smile touched his lips. Probably. The honesty in his answer disarmed me. I took his offered arm, allowing him to lead me back inside, where round tables were now set for dinner. Dante guided me to what was clearly the head table, where Sophia was already seated alongside an older man whose bearing immediately identified him as their father. Elena, Dante said formally. May I present my father, Antonio Ricci. The patriarch rose, taking my hand in both of his. His eyes, identical to Dante's, assessed me with cool intelligence. Miss Russo, my family owes you a debt for your courage. Anyone would have done the same, I replied automatically. Antonio Ricci's smile didn't reach his eyes. We both know that isn't true. He gestured to the seat beside Dante's. Please, join us. Throughout dinner, I felt Antonio watching me, measuring every word, every gesture. Sophia chatted amiably about fashion and travel, but beneath her light tone lay careful observation. They were studying me, I realized, testing me somehow. When the orchestra began playing for dancing, Dante led me onto the floor. His hand settled at the small of my back, warm and firm as he guided me in a waltz. Your family is evaluating me, I said quietly. Yes. No denial, no softening of the truth. Why? He pulled me fractionally closer. Because I've never brought anyone to a family event before. The implication stole my breath. This isn't just a thank you, is it? His dark eyes held mine. No, Elena. It isn't. Before I could respond, the music ended. Dante stepped back, his fingers lingering on mine. Wait here. There's something I need to do. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone on the edge of the dance floor. I was considering finding the ladies' room for a moment of privacy when a hand closed around my elbow. I turned, expecting Dante, only to find myself face to face with Sophia. Let's chat, shall we? Her smile was friendly, her grip anything but as she steered me toward a quiet alcove off the main hall. Girl to girl. Once we were relatively private, she released my arm, her expression turning serious. You seem like a nice person, Elena. Smart, dedicated to your work. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment, just an observation. She sighed. Which makes what I'm about to do somewhat regrettable. My guard instantly rose. And what is that? Warn you. She toyed with the diamond bracelet on her wrist. My brother is selective. In his entire life, he's never shown interest in anyone outside our circle. Until you. I don't understand what you're trying to say. I'm saying that Dante doesn't do anything halfway. If he's brought you here, introduced you to our father, it means he's serious. Her eyes, so like her brother's, fixed on mine. Our world isn't like yours, Elena. It operates by different rules, with different expectations. Margaret's warning echoed in my mind. Different rules. What kind of rules? I asked, though part of me didn't want the answer. Loyalty above all else, family first, always. And the understanding that once you're in, there's no walking away. She stepped closer. My brother thinks he can have a foot in both worlds, yours and ours. He can't. Eventually, he'll have to choose, and you think he'll choose your world. I know he will. Her certainty was absolute. The question is, what happens to you when he does? Before I could respond, a smooth voice interrupted us. Sophia. Dante stood at the entrance to the alcove, his expression neutral, but his eyes cold. Father is looking for you, she smiled, the tension between them palpable. We were just having a little chat, brother. She squeezed my arm again. Think about what I said, Elena. With a last meaningful look, she glided past Dante, who watched her go with narrowed eyes. What did my sister say to you? He asked, closing the distance between us. I met his gaze directly. She warned me about you. about your world. Something like pain flashed across his features. And now you want to leave. No. The answer surprised even me. Now I want the truth. No more evasions, no more half-answers. Who are you really, Dante Ricci? He studied me for a long moment, as though weighing a decision. Then he held out his hand. Come with me. Without hesitation, I placed my palm against his. Whatever truth awaited, I was ready to face it. Dante led me through a service door and down a corridor, away from the glittering party and curious eyes. Marco appeared briefly at the end of the hallway, exchanged a nod with Dante, then melted away again. We climbed a narrow staircase that opened onto the museum's roof, a space clearly not meant for guests, but one that offered a breathtaking view of the city lights below. My family has operated in this city for 3 generations, Dante said without preamble, his voice quiet against the night air. We began with nothing, immigrants with hungry children and willing hands. He moved to the edge of the roof, his profile sharp against the city glow. My grandfather built the foundation. Shipping, mainly, though he diversified when he could. My father expanded into real estate, construction, waste management. I've added technology, private security, legitimate investments. Legitimate, I repeated, the word hanging between us. As opposed to? He turned to face me fully, his expression unreadable in the shadows. You're a smart woman, Elena. I think you've already guessed what my family is. A chill ran through me despite the warm evening. You're not just businessmen. No. No denial, no attempt to soften the truth. The papers call us organized crime. The police use terms like syndicate or mafia. We consider ourselves a family with business interests that sometimes operate outside conventional legal frameworks. The clinical way he described it, as though we were discussing a corporate structure rather than criminal enterprise, sent ice through my veins. Yet beneath my fear ran an undercurrent of something else, relief at finally hearing the truth. So when your sister talks about different rules, she means that we have our own code, our own justice. He stepped closer. We protect our own. We honor our commitments. We pay our debts. Is that why you sought me out? To pay a debt because I pulled you from that car? Pain flashed across his features, so quickly I might have imagined it. At first, yes, but the moment you opened your door that night, debt became secondary. What does that mean? Instead of answering directly, he reached for my hand, turning it palm up in the moonlight. My entire life I've been surrounded by people who want something from me. My name, my money, my power. People who would say or do anything to gain favor. His thumb traced circles on my skin. Then you appeared in the rain, risking your safety for a stranger. No agenda, no knowledge of who I was. Just pure courage and compassion. He lifted his gaze to mine. Do you know how rare that is in my world? The intensity in his eyes made my heart stutter. So I'm a novelty, a good person who wandered into your orbit by accident. No. The word was sharp, definitive. You're a revelation, a reminder that there is still genuine goodness, untainted by calculation. And now that you've revealed what you are to me, what happens next? I pulled my hand free, needing distance from his touch to think clearly. Do I just go back to my life at mercy? Pretend I don't know what you are? Something shifted in his expression, a hardening, a resolve. That depends on you. What does that mean? It means I want you in my life, Elena. He said it simply, as though stating a fundamental truth. How that happens is your choice. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man before me, articulate, cultured, passionate, with what he'd just confessed to being. You're asking me to... What? Date a mafia boss? A smile touched his lips. I prefer businessman with unconventional interests. This isn't funny, Dante. No, he agreed, his smile fading. It isn't. My world is dangerous, complicated. It demands absolute loyalty and offers little forgiveness for mistakes. I wouldn't ask you to enter it lightly. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warm night. Then why ask at all? Why not let me go back to my life, none the wiser about who you really are? He was silent for a long moment, looking out over the city that was, in some ways, his domain. Because for the first time in my life, I've met someone who makes me want more than what I was born into. He turned back to me. Someone who sees the man, not the name. The raw honesty in his voice struck me like a physical blow. I don't know what to say. Say nothing now. He stepped closer, his hand rising to cup my cheek. Take time. Think. When you're ready, whether it's to walk away or something else, call me. His palm was warm against my skin, his dark eyes reflecting the city lights as they searched mine. The moment stretched between us, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Then he leaned down, his lips brushing mine in a kiss so gentle it was barely there. A question, not a demand. When I didn't pull away, his arms slid around my waist, drawing me against him as the kiss deepened, becoming something hungry and consuming. I should have pushed him away, should have remembered what he'd just told me, what he was. Instead, my hands found his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath the perfect tuxedo as I surrendered to the heat building between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "We should return to the party," he murmured, though he made no move to release me, "before my absence causes talk." Reality crashed back. We were at a public event, surrounded by people who knew Dante as a powerful figure in both legitimate and illegitimate worlds, people who would wonder who I was and why I mattered to him. I stepped back, smoothing my dress with trembling hands. "Yes, we should go back." He offered his arm with old-world formality, his expression carefully neutral despite the passion that had flared between us moments before. "Whatever you decide, Elena, know this. I will respect your choice." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and polite conversation. Dante remained attentive, his hand a constant presence at the small of my back. But he didn't pressure me for a response to his revelation. When the gala finally wound down, he drove me home himself, the silence in the car heavy with unspoken words. At my apartment door, he kissed my hand, a return to formality that somehow felt more intimate after what we'd shared on the rooftop. "Take all the time you need," he said softly. "I'll be waiting for your call." I slept fitfully that night, dreams filled with dark eyes and dangerous promises. In the morning, I found a single red rose outside my apartment door with a note that read simply, "No pressure, only hope." For a week, I went through the motions of my life, working shifts at Mercy, paying bills, calling my mother on Sunday as I always did, all while Dante's confession echoed in my mind. We consider ourselves a family with business interests that sometimes operate outside conventional legal frameworks. Such a clinical way to describe what I knew must be criminal enterprise. I researched the Ricci family online, finding surprisingly little concrete information. They were described as prominent business people and philanthropists in most articles. Only a few investigative pieces hinted at darker connections, and even those were careful not to make direct accusations. Whatever illegal activities the family engaged in, they were skilled at keeping them hidden from public view. On Friday, after a particularly grueling shift, I found myself in the hospital chapel, seeking quiet, if not exactly spiritual guidance. I sat in the back pew, staring at the small altar with its flickering candles, trying to make sense of the turmoil in my heart. Troubled thoughts rarely resolve themselves in silence alone. I startled at the voice, turning to find Father Thomas sliding into the pew beside me. He wore the same clerical collar I'd seen at the gala, but his formal suit was replaced by more casual attire. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said, wondering if his appearance was coincidence or something more deliberate. "I volunteer as a chaplain twice a week." His smile was gentle. "But I won't pretend I'm not pleased our paths have crossed again, Elena." The fact that he remembered my name sent a chill through me. "Did Dante send you to check on me?" "No." His answer was immediate, seemingly genuine. "Dante doesn't know I'm here, and if you wish, he never will." I studied him, trying to gauge his sincerity. Why would a family chaplain volunteer at a public hospital? Because faith without works is dead. He folded his hands in his lap, and because sometimes it helps to remember the world beyond the Ricci family's influence. How much of the city is under their influence? His expression remained neutral, more than most realize, less than they might wish. He angled toward me slightly, but I suspect you're not here pondering the extent of their business holdings. I looked back at the altar, the flickering candles blurring in my vision. I don't know what I'm doing. He told me what he is, what his family is, and I should be running in the opposite direction. Yet, here you sit, contemplating rather than fleeing. Father Thomas's voice held no judgment. May I offer a perspective? I nodded, not trusting my voice. I have known Dante since he was a boy. I've watched him grow into the man he is today. A man bound by family loyalty and tradition, yes, but also a man with his own moral compass. The priest's eyes were kind but penetrating. In all these years, I've never seen him bring a woman to a family function. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. What way is that? Like a man seeing possibility for the first time. He shifted, his expression turning serious. The Ricci family operates by a code that exists outside conventional law. That much is true. But they also protect those they consider their own with absolute devotion. If you were to become part of Dante's life, you would never want for anything, materially or emotionally. At what cost? I whispered. That is the question you must answer for yourself. He rose, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. Faith teaches us that redemption is possible for anyone. Perhaps Dante sees in you not just the woman he desires, but the path to becoming the man he wishes to be. With that cryptic observation, he left me alone with my thoughts, more confused than ever. That evening, I found myself staring at the card Dante had given me, the simple white rectangle with its embossed number. Before I could lose my nerve, I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Elena. Just my name, but filled with such hope it made my chest ache. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Name the place and time. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, tomorrow morning at 10. Neutral ground. Public. Safe. I'll be there. A pause. Then, softer. Thank you for calling. I arrived early the next morning, selecting a table in the corner that offered some privacy while remaining in full view of other patrons. At precisely 10, the door opened, and Dante entered. Alone, dressed casually in dark jeans and a gray sweater that somehow made him look more dangerous than his tailored suits. His eyes found me immediately, as though drawn by some invisible force. He crossed to my table with that fluid grace I'd come to associate with him, sliding into the chair across from mine. Thank you for meeting me, he said, his voice low. I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, needing something to ground me. I've been thinking about what you told me, about your family, about what you want, and I don't know if I can be part of that world, Dante. The words hurt to say, but I pushed through. I became a nurse to help people, to heal. What your family does, what you do, hurts people. He was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes never leaving mine. We are not monsters, Elena. We provide services, protection, opportunities in communities where the legitimate system has failed. Yes, sometimes our methods cross legal lines, but we have lines we don't cross. What lines? We don't deal in human trafficking. No drugs in schools, no innocents harmed. He leaned forward. My grandfather established these principles, and they remain our code. But people still get hurt. People who choose to engage with us, knowing the risks. His voice remained calm, reasonable. The world isn't black and white, Elena. You of all people should understand that. How many times have you bent hospital rules to help a patient? How many times have you looked the other way when strict protocol would cause more harm than good? The comparison unsettled me. That's different. Is it? He reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. We both live in the gray areas. Mine is perhaps darker than yours, but the principle is the same. Sometimes the greater good requires flexibility with the rules. The greater good? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Or greater profit. Something hardened in his expression. Both. I won't pretend we're not in business to make money, but we also protect neighborhoods the police have abandoned. We provide jobs to people who would otherwise have none. We support families when the system fails them. I wanted to argue, to point out the self-serving logic in his justifications, but there was enough truth in his words to give me pause. I'd seen the failures of the system firsthand. Patients who couldn't afford medication, families crushed by debt after a medical crisis, communities without basic resources. I don't know if I can reconcile who you are with who I am, I said finally. I'm not asking you to change, Elena. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I'm asking you to let me show you that there's more to me, to us, than what you fear. How would that even work? I'm a nurse. You're I lowered my voice. A mafia boss. A smile touched his lips. A businessman with unconventional interests. Despite everything, I found myself smiling back. Is that what we're calling it now? Call it what you will. His expression turned serious again. I'm asking for a chance, Elena. No promises beyond that. Just time to show you who I really am, beyond the name and reputation. I should have said no. Should have walked away while I still could. Instead, I heard myself say, 1 month. We date like normal people for 1 month. No pressure, no expectations. At the end, I decide if I can handle your business interests. Relief and joy transformed his face. 1 month. He lifted my hand to his lips. I promise you won't regret it. As his lips brushed my knuckles, I wondered if I already did. The days that followed defied my expectations. Dante courted me with an old-world formality that was both charming and disarming. He took me to dinner at small, out-of-the-way restaurants where we wouldn't be recognized. We walked in the botanical gardens, discussing books and music. He listened to my stories about difficult patients and hospital politics with genuine interest. If not for the ever-present security detail that shadowed us discreetly, I might have forgotten who he was, what he did. But there were moments when reality intruded. A phone call he stepped away to take, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper in Italian. The way restaurant owners trembled slightly in his presence. The deference shown by strangers who recognized him on the street. A week into our arrangement, I was leaving work when I noticed a black car idling at the hospital entrance. Marco emerged, opening the rear door as I approached. Miss Russo. Mr. Ricci sends his apologies, but urgent business required his attention. He asked me to ensure you arrived home safely. I hesitated. I usually take the bus. Marco's expression didn't change, but something like horror flickered in his eyes. Mr. Ricci was very specific about his wishes. The implication was clear. Dante had ordered my protection, and Marco would face consequences if I refused. I slid into the back seat, unsure whether to be touched by Dante's concern or unsettled by his control. When I arrived home, I found my apartment filled with flowers. Not just roses this time, but an array of blooms that transformed my small living space into a garden. A note on my coffee table read, "Forgive my absence. Business calls, but my thoughts remain with you. Dinner tomorrow?" I called him, curious about the business that had pulled him away. "It's better if you don't ask," he said, his voice tight. "Some aspects of my work are best kept separate from us. That's not how relationships work, Dante. You can't compartmentalize pieces of yourself." A long silence followed. "You're right," he sighed. "There was an issue with one of our shipping operations. Merchandise that didn't arrive as expected. Illegal merchandise? Let's just say it wouldn't pass customs inspection." His tone lightened. "But it's resolved now. Tomorrow night, I'm entirely yours." The casual way he dismissed what was clearly criminal activity sent a chill through me, yet when he appeared at my door the next evening, his smile warm and a bottle of wine in hand, I found myself letting him in, not just to my apartment, but inch by inch, into my heart as well. As our month of normal dating reached its midpoint, the lines between Dante's world and mine began to blur. Twice more, Marco appeared to drive me home when Dante was called away on business. A package arrived containing a top-of-the-line laptop to replace my ancient one that had crashed the week before, a gift I tried and failed to refuse. The head of the hospital board personally thanked me for my connection to the Ricci Foundation, whose donations had now funded a complete renovation of the pediatric wing. I told myself I was maintaining boundaries, keeping my eyes open. But when Dante kissed me goodnight at my door, all my carefully constructed walls crumbled. 3 weeks in, everything changed. I was working a late shift in the emergency room, a temporary assignment to cover a staffing shortage, when the ambulance bay doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in with a young man on a stretcher, blood soaking through pressure bandages on his chest and abdomen. Multiple GSWs to the torso, the lead paramedic reported as we transferred him to a trauma bay. BP's dropping, pulse thready. No ID found in an alley off Monroe Street. I moved on autopilot, cutting away his blood-soaked shirt, while the attending physician called for blood products. As I worked, I noticed a tattoo on the man's shoulder, a stylized eagle with spread wings. Something about it nagged at my memory, but in the chaos of the trauma, I couldn't place it. For 2 hours, we fought to save him, but the damage was too extensive. At 2:17 a.m., the doctor called time of death, and a heavy silence fell over the trauma bay. As I helped prepare the body for transfer to the morgue, my gaze fell again on the eagle tattoo. With a jolt, I remembered where I'd seen it before, on the neck of one of Dante's men the night of the accident. This man worked for the Ricci family. I finished my shift in a fog, trying to make sense of what had happened. A young man, shot multiple times with connections to Dante. The implications twisted my stomach into knots. When I emerged from the hospital into the pre-dawn darkness, Marco was waiting by the now familiar black car. "Mr. Ricci would like to see you," he said without preamble. "Did he send you to watch me? To report on what happened tonight?" The accusation slipped out before I could stop it. Marco's expression remained impassive. "I don't know what you're referring to, Miss Russo. Mr. Ricci simply asked me to bring you to him after your shift." I was too exhausted to argue. I slid into the back seat, watching the city slide past as Marco drove us not toward my apartment or Dante's penthouse, but toward the waterfront district. We pulled up to a nondescript warehouse. Marco led me through a side entrance, down a corridor, and into what appeared to be a makeshift office. Dante stood with his back to the door, speaking in rapid Italian to 2 men I recognized as his security detail. When he turned and saw me, something flickered across his features. Relief, perhaps, or apprehension. "Thank you, Marco." He dismissed his men with a nod, waiting until we were alone before crossing to me. "Elena, I'm sorry to bring you here like this." "Where is here, exactly?" I glanced around at the sparse furnishings, a desk, some chairs, a safe in the corner. "One of our shipping offices," he gestured vaguely. "Nothing important." "A man died tonight," I said abruptly. "In my ER. Multiple gunshot wounds. He had an eagle tattoo on his shoulder." Dante went very still, his expression unreadable. "What else did you notice about him?" "That's your response? No surprise, no shock, just, what else did you notice?" I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the room's warmth. He was young, maybe 25. Dark hair, no ID, found in an alley off Monroe Street. And he bled out on my table while we tried to save him. Dante closed his eyes briefly. "His name was Anthony Russo. No relation to you." He moved to a cabinet, pouring 2 fingers of amber liquid into a glass and offering it to me. "He was one of ours, yes. A cousin of Marco's, actually." I ignored the offered drink. "What happened to him?" "Business disagreement. With a rival organization." His voice was neutral, clinical. "We've been having territorial disputes." "Territorial disputes? You make it sound like a property line argument between neighbors, not something that leaves young men dead on my ER table." Anger flashed in his eyes, quickly controlled. "What would you have me say, Elena? That this is a war? That people are dying? That I've spent the past 3 days trying to prevent more bloodshed? Is that what your urgent business has been? Planning retaliation?" "Planning protection," he corrected sharply. "For my people. For their families." He set down the untouched glass, running a hand through his hair in a rare display of agitation. "This is my world, Elena, the part I've tried to shield you from." "Well, your world landed in my ER tonight. A young man is dead. Do you think I don't know that?" Real emotion broke through his controlled facade. "Do you think I wanted this? That I don't feel every loss? Then stop it. End this, whatever it is." A bitter laugh escaped him. If only it were that simple. He moved closer, his eyes searching mine. "This isn't a game I can walk away from. These are my people, my responsibility. Your responsibility to what? Lead them into more violence? More death? My responsibility to protect them. The words erupted from him with such force that I took a step back. Seeing my reaction, he immediately softened his tone. I'm sorry. I shouldn't shout. He reached for my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I let him take it. Elena, I've tried to show you the man I want to be with you, but this is also who I am, a man with obligations I can't simply set aside. I looked down at our joined hands, his so much larger than mine, capable of both tenderness and violence. I thought I could handle it, the idea of what you do, but seeing that young man tonight, knowing he died because of this life you lead, what are you saying? I met his gaze directly. I'm saying I don't know if I can do this after all. Pain flashed across his features, raw and unguarded. Please don't decide now. Not like this, when you're tired and upset. When is a good time to decide if I can love a man whose business leaves people dead? The word love hung between us, unintended but impossible to take back. Dante's expression changed, hope warring with despair in his dark eyes. You could love me? That's what you focus on? Not the fact that I'm telling you I can't reconcile what you do with who I am? It's what matters most. He lifted a hand to my cheek, his touch gentle, despite the calluses I could feel against my skin. If you could love me, Elena, the rest is negotiable. How? Your family, your business. You said yourself you can't walk away. No, but I can change how I operate, what I focus on. His gaze never left mine. The legitimate businesses need attention too. Technology, security, real estate, all legal, all profitable. And the other parts? The territorial disputes that get people killed? He was silent for a long moment, considering. I can delegate. Step back. Not immediately, but over time. You'd do that? Disbelief colored my voice. Change your entire life? For you? His thumb traced my cheekbone. Yes. The certainty in his voice stole my breath. Why? Because in 29 years, I've never met anyone who makes me want to be better, who sees me clearly and still hasn't run away. His lips curved in a sad smile. At least not yet. I should have walked away then, should have told him it was too late, that the death I'd witnessed had closed the door on whatever might have been between us. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my heart overriding my head. I need time, I whispered, to think. To decide if I can believe in the change you're promising. Relief washed over his features. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. He drove me home himself as dawn broke over the city, neither of us speaking much. At my door, he kissed my forehead, chaste, respectful of the distance I'd requested. Call me when you're ready, he said. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. I spent the next 3 days in a fog of indecision, replaying every moment with Dante against the stark reality of Anthony Russo's death. I called in sick to work, unable to face the hospital where the young man had died. I ignored my ringing phone, shutting out the world while I wrestled with my heart. On the 3rd day, a knock at my door roused me from restless sleep on my sofa. I opened it to find not Dante, as I'd half feared and half hoped, but Sophia. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting, pushing past me into my apartment. She carried a paper bag that smelled of coffee and pastries. Eat something. We need to talk. Too surprised to object, I accepted the coffee she thrust into my hands. Dante didn't send you? My brother doesn't know I'm here. She perched on the edge of my sofa, studying me with those dark eyes so like her brother's. He's a mess, by the way, worse than you if possible. Why are you here, Sophia? She sighed, her carefully maintained facade slipping to reveal genuine concern. Because I've never seen my brother like this. He's not eating, not sleeping, just working and staring at his phone, hoping you'll call. I said I needed time. Time for what? To convince yourself you're better off without him? Her tone sharpened. Let me guess. You saw something that reminded you of what our family does, and now you're having a moral crisis. The accuracy of her assessment stung. A man died, one of your people. Something like genuine grief flickered in her eyes. Anthony. Yes, I know. He was a good kid. Good kids don't end up shot in alleys as part of territorial disputes. No, they don't, she agreed, surprising me. Which is why Dante has been working day and night to ensure it doesn't happen again. Not through retaliation, as our father would prefer, but through negotiation. This was new information. What do you mean? Sophia set down her coffee, leaning forward. My brother is trying to broker peace with our rivals, a formal agreement to end the bloodshed, with concessions on both sides. Our father thinks he's weak for it. The old guard is questioning his leadership. Her gaze held mine. He's risking everything, his position, his authority, possibly even his life, to find a solution that doesn't involve more violence. And he's doing it because of you. I never asked him to do that. You didn't have to. You showed him another way to see the world. She stood, pacing my small living room. I warned you that our world operates by different rules. What I didn't tell you is that those rules can change, but only if someone is brave enough to change them. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, absorbing her words. Why are you telling me this? I thought you wanted me gone. I wanted what was best for my brother. She stopped pacing, her expression softening. I thought that meant someone from our world, who understands the life. Now I'm not so sure. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is the address where Dante is meeting with the rival family's representatives tonight. A neutral location. 7 o'clock. I took the paper, confused. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you decide. She moved to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I've never seen my brother fight so hard for anything as he's fighting for a future with you. If anyone can help him become the man he wants to be, it's you. She smiled, a genuine warmth replacing her usual sharpness. But if you break his heart, I'll still have to kill you. The joke, at least I hoped it was a joke, startled a laugh from me. Noted. After she left, I stared at the address in my hand, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to close the door on Dante and his complicated, dangerous world for good. But another part, the part that remembered his gentle touch, his honest words, the way he looked at me like I was something precious, couldn't let go so easily. At 6:30, I found myself in a taxi, heading toward the address Sophia had given me. A restaurant in a neutral part of the city, upscale but not ostentatious. I hadn't called ahead, hadn't warned Dante I was coming. I wasn't even sure what I would say when I saw him. The restaurant was half empty, the soft murmur of conversation creating a bubble of privacy around each table. In a corner booth, I spotted him immediately. Dante, flanked by Marco and another man I didn't recognize, facing 3 men whose stiff postures and wary expressions marked them as the rival faction. I hesitated at the entrance, suddenly uncertain. This was his world, one I'd told myself I couldn't be part of. Yet here I was, drawn back to him like a compass needle finding north. A waiter approached, but before he could speak, Dante looked up. Our eyes met across the restaurant, and everything else seemed to fade away. He said something to the men at his table, and stood, making his way toward me with that fluid grace that had captivated me from the beginning. Elena. He stopped a few feet away, as though afraid to come closer. What are you doing here? Sophia told me where to find you, I admitted. She said you were negotiating peace. A flicker of surprise crossed his features. My sister has never been one for staying out of my business. His expression sobered. Yes, I'm trying to end this conflict without more bloodshed. It's not going well. Because of your father? The old guard? His eyebrows rose. Sophia has been talkative. She cares about you. I took a step closer. As do I. Hope kindled in his eyes. Does that mean... It means I'm still terrified of your world. Still not sure I can be part of it. I drew a deep breath, but I'm also not sure I can walk away from you. He closed the distance between us, his hands coming up to frame my face. Then don't. Stay. Help me find a better way. What if there isn't one? What if this is who you'll always be? Then I'll work harder to keep that part of my life separate from ours. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. I can't promise to be someone I'm not, Elena, but I can promise to try to be better. For you. For us. I covered his hands with mine. I don't want you to change for me. I want you to change because it's right. Then help me learn what right looks like in a world of gray. His dark eyes held mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. I'm not asking you to accept all of me immediately, just to give us a chance to find a middle ground. Behind him, I could see the men at his table watching us with expressions ranging from curiosity to irritation. You should get back to your meeting. To hell with the meeting, he said with unexpected vehemence. Nothing matters more than this conversation, than you. The raw honesty in his voice reached something deep inside me. I can't promise anything, I whispered. I'm not asking for promises, just possibility. He leaned his forehead against mine. Just the chance to show you that love can bridge our worlds. There it was, the word we'd both been circling. Love. A concept both simple and impossibly complex in the context of who we were, where we'd come from. Go finish your meeting, I said softly. Do what you can to end this peacefully. Then come find me, and we'll talk about possibilities. Relief washed over his features. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, lingering as though drawing strength from the contact. Wait for me? I'll be at the cafe on the corner, he nodded, reluctantly stepping back. 1 hour, 2 at most. I watched him return to his table, watched the subtle shift in his demeanor as he resumed his role as the head of the Ricci family. Even from a distance, I could see the respect the other men showed him. Not fear, as I might have expected, but a deference born of genuine regard. In that moment, I glimpsed a truth I'd been avoiding. Dante wasn't just a criminal with a charitable side. He was a leader trying to guide his people toward a better future, constrained by tradition and expectation, but fighting against those constraints in ways I was only beginning to understand. True to his word, Dante found me 90 minutes later. He slid into the chair across from me at the cafe, exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. It's done, he said simply. Not perfect, but a start. No more violence. Clearly defined boundaries. Mutual respect. And your father? Will he honor this agreement? A shadow crossed his face. My father no longer makes these decisions. I do. The simple statement carried the weight of a much larger shift in power, one I suspected hadn't come without cost. What happens now? I asked, unable to articulate the broader question about us, about our future. Dante reached across the table, his fingers intertwining with mine. Now we take it one day at a time. I'll show you that I'm serious about change. Real change. Not just for you, but for the future of my family, and you'll show me how to navigate this world you believe in, where rules matter and violence isn't the answer. And us. What are we in the meantime? A smile touched his lips, not the calculated charm he showed the world, but something softer, more genuine. We're two people who found each other in the rain, who saw past appearances to what lies beneath, who are willing to try, despite everything. That sounds a lot like love, I said quietly. It does, doesn't it? He lifted our joined hands, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. I love you, Elena Russo. I think I have since you dragged me from that car without a thought for your own safety. Everything since has only confirmed what I knew that night, that you are the compass I've been searching for. The words washed over me like a wave, breaking down the last of my resistance. I love you too, I whispered, the truth of it settling in my bones. God help me. But I do. His smile was like sunrise after the longest night. Then we'll figure out the rest together. 6 months later, Dante made good on his promise of change. The Ricci family's legitimate businesses flourished under his leadership, while their more questionable activities gradually diminished. Violence became a last resort, rather than a first response. Old allies grumbled, new partnerships formed. I continued my work at Mercy, now as the head of the newly expanded pediatric wing, funded by the Ricci Foundation, but operated with complete independence. Dante respected the boundary between our worlds, never using his influence at the hospital beyond his initial donation. We moved into a penthouse overlooking the city. Not his family's property, but a new place, chosen together, where we could build a life that bridged our separate worlds. On a rainy night exactly 1 year after I'd pulled him from the wreckage of his car, Dante took me back to the museum where we'd danced at the gala. The building was closed to the public, but the roof garden was open to us alone, transformed by thousands of tiny lights that mimicked the stars above. There, under the same sky where he'd first revealed his true identity to me, He knelt on one knee, offering a ring that caught the starlight like captured fire. "Elena Russo," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion I could see in his eyes. "You saved my life once by pulling me from a burning car. You saved my soul by showing me a different path. Will you continue saving me, every day, as my wife?" I thought of the journey we'd traveled. From strangers in the rain, to lovers navigating the complex terrain between our worlds. I thought of the changes I'd witnessed, not just in Dante, but in myself. Stronger now, more willing to see the gray areas without losing sight of what mattered. "Yes," I said, the simplest word containing all my heart. "Yes, I will." As his arms encircled me, as his lips found mine in a kiss that tasted of promise and possibility, I knew that our story wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead, moments when his world and mine would clash, decisions that would test our commitment to change. But I also knew that some loves are worth the risk. Some souls find each other across impossible divides, and sometimes, pulling a stranger from a wrecked car isn't the end of a story, but the beginning of one that changes everything. In the shelter of Dante's embrace, with the city lights spread before us like a carpet of stars, I felt the rightness of our unlikely journey. From poor girl to Mafia princess wasn't a path I'd ever imagined taking, but with this man, this complex, evolving, devoted man, it was exactly where I was meant to be.